since I read your piece on your website. You say, I have never wrestled with the composing process. On those few occasions where an entire work is not flowing, I simply walk away from it and wait for it to come to me. It always does, sometimes years after the initial inspiration. And so we had this conversation where I was asking you about composition a couple months ago, and it was really helpful for me to hear that. It's not necessarily it's not a block. It's just that things come at their pace, and there's a number of things you can do to try to provoke something to happen, but you can also just walk away and write something else. Like that piece, there's always something that's going to flow, but it's not necessarily going to be the rest of that piece. So I wanted to ask you, because I think a lot of artists could benefit from hearing about this, like your thoughts on that whole concept of artist block, and like what it actually is that's often mistaken for an artist block when a real artist is concerned.
Right. Well, granted, I'm speaking to Catholics, or I'm speaking to Christians who pray, because I've tried to have this conversation with people who don't necessarily believe in God, or don't want to acknowledge God as the source of their creativity, and it doesn't really go well. So because they are looking at it in terms of a block. So that's a standard terminology. Unfortunately, many musicians, artists, we're getting our dialogue and our thought process from the secular world and applying it to the spiritual. That's backwards. There's no such thing as a writer's block for a spiritual being. It's not possible for you to have a block when you're one with God, because God never has a block. So there may be a reason why he stops giving you an idea. Just like conversion, for example, takes years. Like I had a miraculous healing in December of 91. I woke up and I never went to a 12-step program. I never drank again. I never wanted to do drugs again. I absolutely had no craving. I could pour drinks for people, and I still do. It's gone. It's just gone. And it was every day of my life, and part of my life since I was 15 up until that time. We're talking almost a very, very long time. So my point is that, if you're with God, it's the same thing with things flowing through you that are holy. You don't have a block. It stops because God has stopped it, and you have to listen to him as much as you're listening for the music. If you realize that maybe he wants you to take a break, maybe he'd like you to pray a Hail Mary, maybe you should be on the phone with somebody who needs your help, or maybe you should be talking to your wife, or maybe whatever. There's a million reasons why it stopped. But it's only a block when you get frustrated and you can't, oh man, I can't get the next part. We call it a block because we're wrestling with it and trying to get something, and nothing's coming. But what I learned was, when I was composing, if I suddenly realized I was not getting something, or I'm doing this, or trying this, that's not right. Well, this isn't right. Well, let me try. And then, well, wait a minute. What am I doing here? Why am I wrestling with this? This is going to come later. I'm just going to put this up, and I'm not going to wrestle with this. It's a work of art. Why would I beat myself up to complete it when I'm trying to do something beautiful? And the other part of that I learned with that, Tom, is being a father. And I tried to compose one time when my daughter was real little, and she came up and wanted my attention. And I was still in the old mindset where I was like, oh my gosh, if I stop and talk to her now, this composition is going to be gone forever. I mean, because I never stopped when I was in the process before. You can't. You just got to keep going. That's how artists are. There's a fine line between being a creative person and very selfish. And that's the secular world. So here I am with this wrestling thing. And I'm like, gosh, but I looked at what I'm here for, and I thought, no, I'm here as a father first. In 10 years, neither of us are going to care whether I created a great work of art, but I'm going to be really bummed out if I blow her off and I'm the reason she leaves the church because her example of love was too busy when she needed it. And so there I stopped writing, I put it up, and I went to her. And then later on, when she was asleep and my wife was occupied, I'm like, I think I'll go back and just take a look at where I left off and make sure I documented everything okay. And as I was going to do that, I just started to get the flow. And I just sat down and just came and I wrote. And I was like, okay, God, I don't need that lesson again. You are the flow and I'm the vessel. You're the creator, I'm the creature. And the more we could get in tune with that, the more artists would really love their life as creating people and as musicians or sculptors, painters, whatever, you're doing. If you could realize that God is giving this to you and there's a time and a place for it, and he wants you to recognize the time and the place. So my point is, there's no such thing as a writer's block. I used to worry if I don't do this now, I won't have it. It won't be there. So I would be obsessed with completing a work, stay up all night, get it done, and then be like, yes, I did it. I'm great. And I learned, you don't have to do that. You can put it down, walk away, and I can go right back to it and start writing. That's what I did with this one and all my other albums. I just learned not to wrestle with the process.
That's great.
And if I get a block, I just put it up. I'm not going to waste time trying to get the next measure. I just leave it alone and put it away. And sometimes I've actually put that up and I get a whole other inspiration for a completely different work. And
that's what you told me is like, don't be afraid to have multiple things going, or even just write down a scrap and then maybe you can find something to stick that in later.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is really helpful.
That's right. That's exactly
very practical advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you have folders of little scraps and one day they become bigger works when you go to them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I hope people will listen and hear that because, like you said, it's a phrase that's very common: artist block, writer's block, and
if you don't have God, I think you have a lot of those things. I think those are. I'm not saying it's not a real thing, but I'm saying it's not necessary when you have God. I mean, if you get a writer's block, then it means, okay, maybe I should go pray, or maybe I should do spiritual reading, or maybe I should go out and exercise, there's a million things that, why did it stop? If it's coming from God and you're one with God, then why did it stop?
Yeah. Or just recognizing it's not a result of my will.
Yes.
To just like push more of this.
Yeah, good. Well said. Yeah.